Okay, so I made the post and then I realized that this post like was getting a lot of views. I made a post on how to create REST API in Laravel, where I wrote an article on how to create REST API. So in this video, I'll be creating a REST API with Laravel 10, and then I'll be taking you through the process on how to do this. So first thing first, we need to understand that by using any application, like we'll be making use of an operating system, and then I'm making use of Windows. And so you might not have Windows, you might be making use of Mac OS, you might make use of Linux. So it's actually similar to it's actually similar process anyway. So to create a REST API, what you need to do is to just have your command prompt or terminal in Mac OS and then Linux. So what you just need to do to bring it up in Windows, we do Windows R, and then when we type Windows R, we can then enter CMD in the run search bar that comes in. So when I enter CMD, you can see CMD is already on my run search bar. What I just need to do is to hold Control and Shift to start it in administrative mode. So I click OK, and then it gives me administrator privilege to be able to work with any read-write operations that might not be permissible through a normal user process. So this is it, and then command prompt comes up. So the next thing that we need to do is to cd to the folder where we want to create our Laravel application. That means we need to go to the actual folder where we want to create our Laravel application. And then I'm making use of this document folder, but then I am on system 32, which is the default folder for command prompt when you run it in administrative mode. So I will say cd, which means check directory, and then I'll give the path, which is C, and then users, then the name of my computer, and then documents. So the next thing I'm going to do is to make a directory. I'll say mkdir, and then give it a name, Laravel REST API endpoint. After making this directory, the next thing I need to do is to cd inside of it. I'll say cd Laravel REST API endpoint. Now, at this point, we now need to install Laravel. Now, to install Laravel, we need to ensure that we have Composer installed. So you can get Composer in this website. So let me launch my browser. So when my browser comes up, so to get Composer, you just need to go to get composer.org/download. So this is where you get Composer for your operating system. And then if you're on Linux, you can run some of these commands. And also the prerequisite is that you need to make sure you have PHP installed. So by installing SAMP, the latest version of SAMP, you can get PHP. So to install SAMP, you can just go to I think sourceforge.net slash project slash SAMP, which is this. So you'll be getting SAMP over there. So that's just it. And then when you download Composer, you'll be able to work with it. So now we need to run the command to install Laravel. So I'll just make use of ChatGPT and just ask it, I am trying to install Laravel 10. Give me a command using Composer. So it's just going to give you the command to install Laravel. So you can see we just need to copy this and then run this. So I won't be running this anyway because I already have a Laravel installation already. So I don't need to run this. But then when you run that on your computer, you'll be able to install all the Laravel installation that we have. So I just need to cd outside of my directory and then list the directory that I have. So I'll cd into one of these folder that I've used before, REST API. So CLS and then dir. Then I will say move this Laravel application to C slash users slash hp slash documents, and then slash. So what is the name of this part that I have that I created? Okay, first thing first, let me just copy this, and then let me go back outside again. This was the recent part I created. So this is Laravel REST API endpoint. So that's where I'm going to move it to. See the Laravel REST API again. So I'll say move Laravel to CD to Laravel REST API endpoint. So it has moved its file now, and then we just need to check out of that directory and go to where we have the Laravel REST API endpoint. So very good. Now we have it. We are going to see Laravel. Now we just need to cd into Laravel again. Cd into Laravel, CLS, and then we have already created our Laravel application. And then we can just like on a fresh installation of Laravel, you can just generate a key. But by default, I think in Laravel 8 upward, it now generates keys for you automatically. But then to generate a key, you can see PHP artisan key generate. So when you do this, it's going to generate a new key for you. So that way your key is able to like secure your application by like tracking all the like changes or anything. So this key is used to like track. So let's just ask what is the use of the PHP artisan key generate command, and what does the key do in a Laravel application? So you get the answer. So as an encryption key, like I've said, and then it says it is crucial for encryption and security. So this is where Laravel is like more better than other applications, because from right from the box, Laravel already like ship with every security features, every database features, everything that you need. So they've already break the sweat for you. All you just need to do is just write less code and then achieve whatever you want to achieve. So this is why you have to like make use of Laravel to create your REST API, your application, because it is one of the most secure and in demand framework nowadays. So I have an error there. It's saying some API routes and stuff like that. Let me just open Visual Studio Code by typing code dot. So I've already worked with this file before, and then I think I just did something when I tried to like make some recording. Okay, so it says route API has an issue. So this is the issue I have in route API. So I was meant to say class and then comma and then name find users. So let me just do this and then let me run the stuff again. PHP artisan key generate. So this is what you do on a fresh installation of Laravel. But then, as someone who has already like created a Laravel application already, and then I've done all this before, I'm not meant to be doing this, but I'm just trying to show you what you do on the first installation of Laravel. So it is going to generate a new key for me since all my files are in good working condition and there are no like errors or anything. So let's see. It's taking a little bit of time. So let's just see what happens. So application key success successfully. Now this way my application can be like encrypted. Now moving on from that, let's quickly go to how to create a REST API. Now you can notice when I come here, I have this blah 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 blah. I won't be starting from here. So let me just go to the .env file. So this .env file is where all your credentials are stored. So by default, Laravel makes use of MySQL, and then in MySQL, you have this option to like create a database and all those stuff. So MySQL is a database management server. So everyone that's work with a database will know what I'm trying to say. So previous versions of Laravel it used to like come with SQLite pre-installed, and then you have to start setting MySQL as an optional database, and then you have to customize to use MySQL. But henceforth, I think from Laravel 8, the developers see that, oh, oftentimes most people make use of a relational database, and then their database is oftentimes MySQL. So they just like started putting MySQL configuration pre-installed. And then by default, MySQL is run on port 3306, which we already know. And then the DB host, which is the local host IP address assigned to your computer, and then the database name, which is Laravel REST API, and then the username, which is by default root, and then the password, which will leave empty. So we know of this. So you can make use of Laravel with any form of database. You could be making use of PostgreSQL, you could make use of Redis and any of the databases. So in this tutorial, I already have my SQL installed through a fresh installation of SAMP and all those stuff. So what I just need to do is to start my SAMP server, and then my SAMP server starts automatically when I launch it. So I can just like, so my SQL start running on port 3306 that way. So now what next do I need to do? I need to just create a new database. So I'll name this database. Let me just name it what is the name of my directory here? So Laravel REST API endpoint. So this is what I'm going to do in my .env file. So oftentimes when you're working with Laravel, you make use of this .env file very well to configure your application. So the next thing I just need to do is to say PHP artisan migrate. So when I do PHP artisan migrate, look what happens. So it will ask me, do you want to create a database? The Laravel does not exist on the MySQL connection. Because I've changed the database name, I will say yes. And then it's going to create a database and then migrate a bunch of tables into that database. Now, this is what we need to understand. By default, Laravel comes with a database logic. Everything has been created for you, like I've said. So if you go to, let me press Ctrl P on my keyboard and go to models. So we have this file in the app models directory, which is this part, app models. You can see user. So when you click on this user, you see some bunch of information, and then all these informations are what's like describe how to like set up your database. Now, for example, in most applications, when you write with, let's say, plain Python, plain PHP, and you're not using any framework, your application is exposed to some security flaws such as SQL injection. So Laravel already have that in mind, and so they've already prepared the configuration for it to prevent all those kind of issues. So this is why you see this all these classes. This is why they are defined, and then this is how they are designed this way. So now let me explain to you. In protected fillable, we have name, email, password. So this is for the users table. And so all these informations are the only thing that a user can fill. And then we have protected hidden. Now, since you are creating an API, and then users will be like visiting your application, and then smart users that are really good with coding, they might just like go into the developer console and start checking what response your API is bringing out. So this is where all these are hidden from them. So they can't see password of people that are logged, that are like registered on your application. So this is why it is protected hidden. So nobody can sniff this password or like try to like hijack them when they try to like visit your API. Because most times when you use an API or any form of API, it can expose you to security risks if you don't make use of like frameworks such as Laravel. So that's just it. And then protected cast. I think this I really can't say much on this, but I think this is just like to like check if a certain user is like was doing something at a certain point. But then let's just ask, I can ask this AI application, and then they can just like give me an information on what this descriptive array does. So what does it do? So we get an answer from it. So because when working, you need to like oftentimes you need to like make use of an AI companion to be able to like explain some stuff to you, because now one of these days coding has become more easier through using an AI companion. So that way you'll be able to like just like get an explanation of what you don't know before you just need to go and read the documentation and all those stuff. But then through using an AI companion that has been trained, they can just quickly give you an answer on and explain for you so that you can understand it. So it says the code snippet comes from a Laravel. It defines how certain attributes should be automatically cast when interacting with model. So it says, for example, email verified at daytime tells Laravel to automatically cast the email verified at the carbon date time. This means you can do all things. So blah 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 like that. So we won't be going deeper into this section. So let's just go back to our code. And then so this is where we have our users and model, and then we are able to like fill some details into our users table. Now, for example, let's say I want to add more information to my users table. I can say username and then add a comma. What other thing can I add? I can say user age, then add a comma. So if I do this protected fillable and I save, I now need to go to the DB, which is in the database, and I need to look for the table that creates users, the migration that creates users rather. So you see this migration here, and then this is where you see all this information. So if you've been working with SQL before, you'll be able to like grab this concept. Now this part, we can just add more information here and say dollar table, and then for the user name, we can say test. Maybe we want to have a lot of username, and then we'll say user name. So we put a semicolon. The next thing that we need to do is say dollar table user age. So we can give it an integer and say user underscore age. So that means when user enters their age, to be in an integer form. Then what next do we need to do? We need to run PHP artisan migrate again. So PHP artisan migrate. So say PHP artisan migrate again. Okay, so we have to roll back. So PHP artisan migrate roll back. So we now have to do PHP artisan migrate. So now, all this that we are doing, we are running commands, it is making our work so simple. Now, where do we see the real GUI, that is the graphical user representation of all what we have been doing, which is kind of abstract? So let's go to localhost, and then there's a application on that comes with SAMP, which is the PHP admin that runs the MySQL database server. So let's go to where we have Laravel, which is this, and then REST API endpoints. So we have users, and then you see this. So you are going to see now, you can see the information that we filled in the users table. So these are all the stuff that we are doing here. This is where you have the output. Very easy. Now, if you were using the old version, if you were using like the old normal PHP, you have to start going to SQL, creating your database, writing SQL queries and all those stuff. So by using a framework, it makes your work 10 times more faster. So that's just it. Now let's create our API. So to be able to create an API, since you already have a database set up, we need to understand what an API is, how do they work. So application programming interface is just like let me describe it as like a I can say it's like a room. So I'll say it's like a room where so many goods are stored. So which is the application programming interface, the API. So this room now consists of different goods which like the user might need, and then these goods are grouped into like different sections. So for example, now this is a user's table. This is part of the API, and then the database you are using is Laravel REST API endpoint. Let's say for example you want to add more goods. Let's say for example we are creating a section for we're creating a section for example, we are creating a section for, what can I think of? We are creating a section for example, we have users. Now we are creating a section for messages now. let's say we are creating a section for messages, we have to like create a new migration and then create a new model to be able to like create that section of our API. So this is just it. You have to like get it. It's a very simple logic. So the next thing that we need to just do, since we have a database set up, I'll create a fake database data. So by default, Laravel allows you to like create a test fake data, and then we can just go to our AI companion and ask, I want to create a fake data in Laravel, because you don't need to store all these commands in your head and start giving you some headache. So you say, I want to create a fake data in Laravel. How do using Tinker. So Tinker is the Laravel console application. So it says app model blah 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 like that. Run this. So I already have the user model, so I'm just going to run PHP artisan Tinker, and then it's going to load up the Tinker console. And then I'll just paste this, just click enter. So it says eliminate database general error. Your username doesn't have a default value. So what is the issue? Username doesn't have a default value, and then connection and all those stuff. Okay, I don't want to start fixing errors. Let me go out of Tinker first, and then let me remove this username and user age. So I'll remove this and then go to my migration and then remove this username and user age, because I don't want to start fixing some errors that will like take my time. So I'll say PHP artisan migrate row back, and then PHP artisan migrate. So now we now have our default stuff. So that way we don't need to start fixing errors for Tinker and all those stuff that is wasting our time. So now let's go back to Tinker, PHP artisan, Tinker. So now let's copy this command, which is this, and then we can just paste. So it has created one user for us. I think we can still create more users. So if we keep running this, I think we can pass. Let me go back to here and just quickly paste this, because when you paste it on the terminal, I think it is one of this. Is it here or the other one? So for example, if I need multiple users, let me try this first. Aha, so it creates 10 users, 10 more users for us. So you can see how beautiful Laravel is. You are creating and you are testing from the ground up. So you can see multiple fake users that these applications are generating. So this way we can use it to like simulate our REST API. Very good, we are good to go. So let's just go to our endpoint, which is where we define our API route, which is route slash API. So this is it. And then you can see I already created one route here. Now let me delete this. Let me delete this. So this file, this is where you declare all your routes. For example, if you're trying to go to a guest endpoint, you create a get API endpoint here. If it is a post, you create a post API endpoint. And then for get and post, what are the differences? Get allows you to like put information into URL. For example, when you go to Google, for example, or any of the popular application, okay, this is a quite simple example of what a get is. You can see this information in the URL, table, blah blah blah, db is equals to. So these informations that you see, these are what a get. This is what a get API endpoint process. And sometimes, if you are working with a get API endpoint, you might not want to like fill any information. You can still be able to like use it without adding any information to the URL. Now the post is one of the like most secretive form of way to create an endpoint. This way, if you send information, the users can't see what you are sending. So information is like abstract when you are working with the post endpoint. But in the get, users can see. And then we also have some other endpoints such as put, such as delete. Now, these other endpoints, they are just like similar to the get and post. But the only difference is that when using a delete endpoint, you want to like use it to like remove information from your API endpoint, from your API database like that. So That way, that's just how I can explain it. So what next do we need to do? We just need to say route, and then before creating a route, we usually create a controller. So I already created a controller in user controller, which is this. I will have to delete this controller. So let me delete this. So I'll create a controller again in Laravel. So to create a controller, you say PHP. Let me close this. Okay, I need to go outside of Thinker. So PHP artisan make controller, and then you define your controller name. So I'll be saying user model controller. Don't name your controller this way anyway because it will cause issues when we are working with other developers. You usually name it user controller. But then the reason why I included model is to show you that this controller works with the users table. So user model controller. So it is going to create this controller for us in the app HTTP controller folder. You can see it. Now the next thing that we need to do is to like create a method in our class. In object-oriented programming, a method is just like a function, and then you can just like pass some method attributes for encapsulation, like to prevent users from working with it. For example, if you say public, that means everyone can like access that method. Then we just create a name for the public method. So let's say find users, which is what we'll be using for our guest for our route for our get endpoint, and then we can now say we'll pass a request method into it. So we say public function. So there should be a function in front. Find users, and then we'll pass dollar. We'll pass the request illuminate request class into it and say and use the dollar request to access the illuminate request. So what does this illuminate request does? The illuminate request class allows you to like receive information via your endpoint. Now this illuminate request is what check whenever a user is making a call to our API and it's going to say let's say for example localhost and then your API slash then find users and then maybe the user is equals to maybe my name and stuff like that. So this is what the eliminate request does, is that it extracts any information that comes with your API endpoint URL. So since for now I will not be passing any information to my REST API, I just want to like return what is in the database. So I will say use app then slash models and then slash user. So this user model will just get everything that is in the database. So we say user, or we can create a variable dollar get all or dollar find all users. This is not a good way to name a variable anyway. Let me just name it find all users is equals to the user model and then get. So this is the only thing that we do. Very simple. So even using the eloquent method, I have already like make the work very easy for you. You don't need to start learning SQL again, but then it is important you know SQL and all those stuff. So the eloquent method just makes database accessible, and then they've defined everything in such a way that even the like beginner, like an 8 to 10 years old kid, can like start writing code in Laravel and understand everything. So they define all users. Now we just need to define the endpoint. That is where we need to like touch the controller. So the first thing that we need to do is to always import the class we are using. So we say use app slash http. So you can see my code editor is guessing it. So this is the advantage of a code editor. What's the name of the controller? Users. Okay, so user model controller and then semicolon at the back. So next thing I'll say is route, which is for the get. This is route get, and then the next thing is the name of the route. So it is better you like name your route the same way you name your class. Your method rather, the method that will access any information for that route. So what you just need to do is copy this and then come here and say find users. Then what is the next thing? You need to call the class that find user will access. So you pass it into an array and say user, which is this model controller that you are using. You call the model controller, which is the class And then the next thing the model controller wants to listen to is the method for your API endpoint, which is the find users method. So pass it into a string and say find users. So we are all good, and then we'll be able to create our REST API. So what is the issue? Undefined type app HTTP user model controller. What is the issue here? Okay, so it says undefined type. So it should be should it be use app HTTP? So what do we do to resolve this? Okay, let me go back to how this was before. So use app okay. Okay. So use app HTTP, then the controller's class needs to be passed. Rather, the controller folder needs to be passed to this, and then this is the issue. So when working, please, we have to always make sure that we can see our folders. That is, our folders, we need to ensure that we write them correctly. So all said and done, we are all good. We can also copy this and duplicate for a post endpoint, and then be sure to know that when you want to create a post endpoint, you can't duplicate same route. You have to create a new method and say, for example, you can just copy this method and say add users for the post method, and then go back to api.php and rename this to add users, then add users, then rename this to post. So that way, if you want to call it post endpoint. Now, all said and done, you can just like save this, save all of this, and then come to our terminal or our command prompt. Oftentimes I make use of Linux. I don't like using Windows, but then I just have to like make use of my Windows PC. So I'll say PHP artisan serve. So if everything is working fine, perfectly, you see this beautiful response from your console. But if there's an error, you will see an error with your console. So everything is working fine at this point. So we just need to copy this and then go to our REST API endpoint. So to access any REST API endpoint, you pass API, then the name of your endpoint, which is find users. Now let's see what happens when we go here. So it says target class app HTTP controller user model controller does not exist. So what is the issue? So the target class app HTTP controller. So this is the struggle when writing code. So in our API, it says the user model controller class, which is this. Let's copy it. Maybe there's a mistake or a typo or something. Let's copy it and then does not exist. Maybe there's an issue with the way I spelled it. I don't think there's an issue here. Is this saved? This is saved, and then what could be the issue again? So the target class. Okay, so let me just roll back the hands of time and see how I work with stuff like this. For example, this is use app HTTP controllers. Okay, so I think this should be in capital letter. Now let's refresh and see what happens. So very good. Our API endpoint is working. And then in the controller, which is what like writes all our logic, you can see this user get, that is get all the users in the database table for the get route. So this user get is not like relating to the get route. This is an eloquent method. You can find just one single user by saying user first, for example. But then I'm not going to do that now. So this user gets, and then we say dd. Dd is like a command that's like show the information about a particular data, and then in an array format. You can see This is where it's coming from. App models users. We have 11 users in our table. So what do we have here? Okay, it is 12 users. So it is counting using an array form. So which is one, two, three. We start counting from zero when working with arrays. So you can see all the user information. So where do we get the user information there? So you can see name, email, password. Okay, for example, now let me say I want to like access user one and then their name. So what do I need to do? So I'll say user first, then the user first, then ed dollar find all users. Now let's see. Refresh. So it returns the first user. Now we should be able to see their name in one of these, but then this DD just gives us information about the data that we are processing. So let's do the normal stuff. So we say dollar find all users, and then we point to the name of the person, name, and then return the response, which is this, and then return response. So we say reply should be dollar find all users name, and then this. So what is the issue? Unexpected error. Okay. I think this shouldn't be passed this way. All we need to do is to say this, and then dollar user. Okay, return dollar response. So why is this not working? So everything should work fine now. So now let's reload our let's reload our page and see what we get. So Professor Rigoberto Rubel, that is the name of this first user. So that is this. We have a JSON response, and then that is how we define a REST API in Laravel. Now, if you want to take this further, you might just like start creating posts, puts, and all those stuff. So just try to like follow me for more videos. I'll be creating more of this, and then in my next video, I'll create something more better than this. And then I plan to like create an application where you can chat with people through an instant messaging app, and then you can use a REST API and see how powerful it is. And then we don't like create REST API this way because, for example, if I'm an attacker, I can come to these sites and start like trying to like access all this information. So make use of middleware, and then I'm going to be explaining all that stuff that you used to like protect your API routes. You can see in the API declaration, you can see it comes with the middleware and all the stuff. The reason why I'm not using a middleware, I'm going to like explain because all this stuff and stuff like that. Oh, you can see my battery is very low. So that's just it. I just try to like make this tutorial painstakingly